You reach under the bathroom sink, past the half-used shampoo, old razor blades, dusty bandages, and there it is, that little brown bottle. Hydrogen peroxide. It costs less than a cup of coffee, yet people spend hundreds on pest control, mold sprays, drain cleaners, disinfectants, and bright bottles that promise to kill everything in sight. The strange part is that cheap brown bottle really can do some of those jobs. It can fizz through grime. It can break down organic mess. It can help knock back mold. It can ruin the tiny breeding spots where drain flies live. Used correctly, it is one of the simplest tools in the house, but used the way most people use it, it fails. Not because the old-timers were wrong. Because hydrogen peroxide does something quietly while it sits under your sink. It dies. Over time, that powerful liquid turns into plain water and oxygen. No smell, no warning, no dramatic change. So why does the same brown bottle sometimes wipe out pests, mold, and drain flies for pennies, while other times it does absolutely nothing? Before we talk about ants, mold, or flies, you have to understand what is actually dying inside that bottle. I am going to show you how to use that little brown bottle the practical way. Not as a miracle cure, not as a magic shield, as a reaction you trigger on purpose. That is the first mistake most people make. They think hydrogen peroxide is like bleach sitting on a surface, waiting around to keep killing. It is not. Pharmacy hydrogen peroxide is usually 3% hydrogen peroxide and 97% water. The useful part is unstable. When it touches light, heat, metal, dirt, blood, mold, soap scum, or the organic film inside a drain, it starts breaking apart. That breaking apart is the work. It releases oxygen. That is the fizz you see. Those bubbles are not proof that everything is disinfected. They are proof that peroxide is reacting with something. Sometimes that reaction lifts grime, loosens residue, and damages fragile microbes. Sometimes it burns itself out before it reaches the problem. So the old household wisdom was never pour it anywhere and hope. It was fresher bottle, darker storage, enough contact time, and the right target. This is where old farmhouse knowledge gets practical. Simple things were respected because wasting them cost money. You used what worked, where it worked, while it was still alive. We will cover the chemistry first, the 4 wasteful mistakes second, the real household uses third, and the dangerous mixtures last. Once you see why the molecule is unstable, every so-called rule suddenly stops sounding like superstition. At the smallest level, hydrogen peroxide is not mysterious. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, 2 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygen atoms. That sounds like a tiny difference, but that extra oxygen is the whole story. It does not sit comfortably. It is loosely held, like a latch that never quite locks. When hydrogen peroxide meets the right surface, that extra oxygen breaks away and reacts fast. That reaction is called oxidation. Oxidation is what browns a cut apple. It is what rusts iron. And in the right place, it damages soft-bodied insects, eggs, larvae, mold, bacteria, and the slimy organic film pests use as shelter. That is why it can matter in a drain. Drain flies do not appear from nowhere. Their young live in the wet film clinging inside the pipe. When fresh peroxide reaches that film, released oxygen can bubble through it, loosen it, and attack the fragile life hiding there. But notice the word fresh. Hydrogen peroxide is not a poison that stays behind like a painted fence. Once the reaction is over, it has mostly become plain water and oxygen gas. The bubbles leave. The strength is spent. There is no lasting wall, invisible shield, or month-long protection. That is its gift and its limit. Chemists have known this for a long time. In 1818, French chemist Louis-Jacques Thenard first prepared hydrogen peroxide in the laboratory. Since then, the useful part has still been that unstable extra oxygen. When peroxide works, it works because it reacts at the right moment, on the right material, with enough strength left to do the job. But the same thing that makes it powerful is also the reason most bottles are half dead before they ever touch a pest. Most people do not ruin hydrogen peroxide when they use it. They ruin it before they use it. The first mistake is pouring it into a clear spray bottle and setting it by a sunny window, under a sink light, or beside a warm washer. That looks convenient, but it turns active peroxide into weak water faster. Light and heat push hydrogen peroxide to break apart. The brown bottle is not decoration, it is a shield. It slows the reaction while the peroxide waits on the shelf. Clear plastic lets light in, and warmth speeds the whole thing up. The second mistake is trusting an opened bottle for years. A sealed bottle can last a while if stored cool and dark, but once you open it, air, dust, and tiny impurities can get in. Every impurity gives peroxide another place to start falling apart. That is why the bottle from 3 summers ago may still fizz a little on a cut, but fail on a drain or mold patch. A weak fizz is not proof of full strength. It only proves something is left. The third mistake is making a big diluted batch and saving it. People think they are being efficient. They mix peroxide with water in a spray bottle, label it, and keep it for next week. But dilution gives peroxide more contact with whatever is in that water. Tap water can carry minerals and trace metals, and some metals act like tiny accelerators for decomposition. If you need to dilute it, mix only what you will use right then. Fresh, small, no leftovers. The fourth mistake is spraying and wiping immediately. Peroxide is not a perfume. It does not work because it touched the surface for 1 second. It needs wet contact time. The surface has to stay visibly damp long enough for oxidation to attack the film, eggs, larvae, spores, or grime you are targeting. Wipe too soon, and you remove the tool before it finishes the job. So the rule is simple. Keep it dark, keep it cool, keep it fresh. Give it time. Now that the bottle is alive, dark, fresh, and given time, the first target is hiding in the wet soil of your houseplants. Those tiny black flies around your pothos are not the real problem. They are the smoke. The fire is in the top inch of damp potting mix, where you cannot see the eggs, larvae, and the reason the swarm keeps coming back after you clap 3 adults out of the air. Fungus gnats love wet soil, not soil that is moist for a day after watering. Soil that stays wet all the time. That top layer becomes a nursery, especially in rich potting mix with decaying bark and organic matter. One female can lay up to around 200 eggs in a week. That is why it feels like the plant was fine on Monday, and by Friday, there is a cloud over the windowsill. The wrong move is spraying the air. You might kill a few adults, but the next wave is already below the surface. You have to treat the nursery. First, let the top inch or 2 of soil dry out. Not the whole root ball into a brick, just the breeding zone. Then mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts water, and water the plant until the mix is evenly wet and liquid drains from the bottom. That drainage matters. A polite splash on top does not reach the larvae. Peroxide works here because it oxidizes soft-bodied larvae and eggs. Then it breaks down into water and oxygen in the root zone. But if you keep overwatering, the gnats come back. The cure is peroxide once. The prevention is drier soil between waterings. The same hidden breeding logic applies to another pest, except this one lives inside the pipe you cannot see. If the flies are coming from the sink, they are usually not coming from the sewer. Look closely, and you will see they are not houseflies. They are tiny, fuzzy, moth-like specks that lift off the drain when you turn on the bathroom light, or hover around the kitchen sink after dishes sit overnight. Those are drain flies, and the pipe is not the highway. It is the nest. Inside that drain, especially in the curved trap and first stretch of pipe, grease, hair, toothpaste, soap scum, food bits, and skin oils can build into a soft organic film. Not always a clog you can feel, a slime layer. That is where eggs are laid and where larvae feed. So spraying the sink bowl is theater. You have to reach the film. Pour about 1 cup of straight 3% hydrogen peroxide down the drain. Do not dilute it for this job. Let it sit at least 1 hour, and overnight is better if nobody needs the sink. The bubbling is the peroxide reacting with organic material, lifting and breaking up the layer the flies are using. Then flush with hot water. Do it once a day for about a week, because you are interrupting a cycle, not swatting one bug. After that, use it occasionally, especially in slow drains, guest bathrooms, and kitchen sinks that get grease. The point is not to perfume the drain. It is to remove the hidden food and breeding layer. And once you understand peroxide as a way to reach into hidden organic layers, mold starts to look very different from a surface stain. That black line in the shower grout is not always just sitting on top. On a hard, sealed surface, bleach can make mold look gone fast. It strips color. It whitens the stain. On tile, glass, and other non-porous surfaces, that can be useful. But grout is different. Old wood is different. Some painted drywall is different. Those surfaces have pores, tiny openings where moisture sits and mold can send threads below the surface. If you only whiten the top, the spot may look clean in the afternoon and return a week later like it was waiting for you. That is where 3% hydrogen peroxide earns its keep. Use it straight from the brown bottle. Do not water it down. Soak the moldy spot until it is wet, not just misted. Then leave it alone for 10 to 15 minutes. Give the bubbling time to work into the surface. After that, scrub with a brush, wipe it clean, and let the area dry. The waiting is the part most people skip. They spray, scrub immediately, and decide peroxide is weak. But peroxide needs contact time. It breaks down into water and oxygen, and that oxygen reaction helps loosen organic material in places a quick wipe cannot reach. For stubborn grout, sprinkle on a little baking soda before scrubbing. Not because it makes a magic chemical potion. It gives you grit. But test first. Peroxide can mildly bleach colors, especially on dyed fabrics, stained wood, painted trim, or tinted grout. Try a hidden corner before you soak the middle of the room, and know the line between a household job and a real mold problem. If the patch is larger than about 10 square feet, if it keeps coming back, or if the wall feels soft, you are not dealing with a cleaning problem anymore. You are dealing with moisture, a leak, poor ventilation, or wet material behind the surface. Peroxide can clean what it can reach. It cannot fix the pipe behind the wall. But not every household pest hides in a drain or wall. Some announce themselves in a marching line across your counter. A line of ants on a counter is not one problem. It is two. You have the walkers you can see, and you have the invisible road they are following. Hydrogen peroxide helps because it can deal with both, but only on the surface. For ants, do not use it straight. Mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 2 parts water. Pour it into a spray bottle. Then spray directly on the ants and along the trail they are using. On contact, peroxide can kill small ants by oxidation. It damages the outer body and delicate tissues enough that the insect cannot recover. That is why a direct hit matters. A light mist near the line is not the same thing. Then comes the second job. Ants do not wander randomly. They leave a scent trail, like a chemical chalk line, so the next ant can follow the same route to food. Peroxide can help oxidize or disrupt that trail. After spraying, wipe the path clean, especially along baseboards, under the sink lip, behind the toaster, and around the trash can. But this is not colony control. Peroxide kills what you spray. It helps erase the road. It does not travel back to the nest the way a slow bait can. If ants keep returning from the same crack, you still need to remove the food source, seal the entry point, or use bait where pets and children cannot reach it. That same contact-only rule becomes even more important outdoors, where the pests are softer, faster, and often hiding under leaves. Out in the garden, peroxide is not a bug bomb. It is a contact tool. That matters with aphids, spider mites, whiteflies, and mealybugs, because most of them are not sitting proudly on top of the leaf. They are tucked underneath, along the veins, in soft new growth, where a lazy top spray never touches them. For these soft-bodied pests, use a weak mix, 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide in 1 gallon of water. Not a heavy pour, not a stronger batch because the plant looks bad. A weak mist, aimed where the pests actually live. Test 1 leaf first, spray it, wait a day, and look for spotting, curling, or burned edges. If the leaf looks fine, spray the plant at dawn or dusk, when the sun is not turning wet droplets into tiny magnifying glasses. Cover the undersides. That is the difference between treating the pest and just making the plant smell clean. The reason it can work is oxidation. Peroxide breaks down delicate surfaces on tiny soft-bodied insects, and can disrupt fungal growth sitting on the leaf. That is why it may help on powdery mildew too, when you wet the affected foliage directly. It is not feeding the plant. It is reacting with what it touches. In the soil, use the stronger drench rule from fungus gnats. 1 part 3% peroxide to 4 parts water poured through the potting mix. That can help with larvae and other small soil pests near the root zone. But the soil needs to drain. Sour, soggy soil will keep inviting trouble back. Thrips need more patience. First, rinse the plant hard with water to knock off adults and debris. Then treat the top inch of soil with equal parts 3% peroxide and water once a week. One treatment misses the next generation because thrips do not all show up on the same day. Match the mix to the target, hit the place where the pest hides, and repeat when the life cycle demands it. But this is where the old brown bottle gets overprized, because 2 famous pests need more than a quick spray. Mosquitoes are where peroxide gets sold like magic, a capful in a bird bath, a spray across the porch, a mist around the steps before sunset. Here is the honest version. Hydrogen peroxide can kill mosquito larvae when it directly contacts them in standing water. If there is a forgotten bucket behind the shed, a clogged saucer under a flower pot, or a shallow puddle in a tarp, peroxide may damage the larva sitting there, but it breaks down fast. Light, air, and organic muck chew it up quickly, and once it has fizzed out, it is not standing guard. It does not leave an invisible fence around your patio. It does not make the railing mosquito-proof for the evening. If adults are flying in from wet grass, gutters, tree holes, or the neighbor's yard, that brown bottle is outmatched. The dependable move is boring. Dump the water. Scrub the slimy edge. Flip the bucket. Clear the gutter. Mosquitoes need still water to breed, so taking the nursery away beats treating it after they arrive. Fleas are the same kind of half-truth. Peroxide can help on washable, hard surfaces where eggs, larvae, or flea dirt are sitting exposed. It may damage what it touches, but fleas live in cycles, and most of the work is not fizzing. It is vacuuming carpets and cracks, washing bedding hot, drying with heat, and repeating it week after week as new fleas emerge. And do not put hydrogen peroxide on dogs or cats. Not for fleas. Not for itching. Not because someone online said it is natural. Pets need veterinary-approved flea treatment, because peroxide can irritate skin, damage tissue, and make a bad problem worse. So the rule is simple. Peroxide helps on contact. Habits solve the infestation. There is one more household situation where using the bottle correctly is not about saving money. It is about not breathing something dangerous. Mouse droppings are not dirt. They are little pellets of risk, usually sitting beside urine spots, chewed paper, insulation fluff, and whatever nesting material the animal dragged behind the stove. That mess can carry serious disease. So the worst thing you can do is grab a broom and start sweeping. Same with a vacuum. A broom flicks dry particles into the air. A vacuum can pull contaminated dust through the machine and blow it around the room. Now the problem is not on the floor anymore. It is in your breathing space. The safer order is slow on purpose. Put on gloves. Put on a mask. Use regular 3% hydrogen peroxide and spray the droppings and the area around them until they are wet. Not damp. Wet. Then wait at least 5 minutes. That waiting is not decoration. It is the job. Peroxide needs contact time before you move the mess. Once it has soaked, wipe everything up with paper towels. Do not shake them. Do not brush them into a pile. Lift, fold, and contain. Drop the used towels into a bag, seal it, and take it out with the trash. Then spray the area again and let it air dry. That is the whole point of this bottle in a rodent cleanup. Disinfect first, move second. And that brings us to the part no old remedy video should ever skip, the combinations and habits that can hurt you. That is where the old brown bottle gets misunderstood. People hear simple and think safe no matter what. They hear old remedy and think use more. They hear natural and stop reading the label. That is the real villain here. Hydrogen peroxide is useful because it is reactive. That same quality is why you do not pour it into the same container with vinegar. Together, they can form parasitic acid, a harsh irritant for lungs, skin, and eyes. You also never mix it with bleach. Not in a bucket, not in a spray bottle. Not because you saw a stronger cleaning hack online. And stronger is not smarter. The household bottle is 3% for a reason. Higher concentrations can burn skin and damage surfaces before they ever solve your problem. Even the first aid lesson changed. Modern medical guidance generally discourages pouring peroxide into open wounds because it can injure the very tissue trying to heal. That is the old-style lesson, stripped of romance. Thrift works only with method, restraint, and respect. So the answer to the brown bottle mystery is not whether hydrogen peroxide works. It is whether you have been giving it a chance to work. Here is the answer to the brown bottle mystery. Hydrogen peroxide works when it is fresh, kept dark, used at household strength, mixed only when you need it, and left wet long enough to react. It fails when it is old, light damaged, watered down too early, wiped away too fast, or asked to do a job it was never meant to do. That is the whole system. A fresh 3% bottle, a dark cabinet, small batches, real contact time, clear limits, and that is why this knowledge disappears so easily. Nobody makes much money teaching you how to use a $1 bottle correctly. So the method gets lost, and the product gets blamed. Here is your job this week. Take the bottle you already own and splash a little into the sink or onto something organic. If it gives a strong, lively fizz, it still has power. If it barely reacts, replace it, then store the new bottle properly. In the comments, tell me which problem brought you here. Pests, mold, drains, stains, or something else. And tell me what old family use for the brown bottle was passed down to you. Thanks for watching.